Thank you, everyone, for joining us today for the Soul Cafe weekly discussion. We apologize for being so late. We had some tech issues, so it won't happen again. But we're really excited for the discussion today because it's about childhood religious experiences.
Oh, yes. Formative years.
Yeah, exactly.
Dig into that.
Yeah, like what you experience in your childhood and your youth around religion and spirituality, like really it shapes a lot of how you relate to religion and spirituality growing up and in adulthood.
Oh, yes.
So it's definitely an important topic. We're very happy to have all these people here today. We have Jose and Michaela. We have Casey Kelly, Lou, Renato, and Sage. We are Daniel and Deanna. And yeah. Want to get started?
Sure. I can dive in, get the ball rolling. As some of you saw, we talked about a little of this in our first sermon, but religion was a big deal for me growing up. Grew up Catholic, but not really only Catholic because I grew up in just a really Christian small town in Michigan. And so we had like actually a youth group that was combining the youth groups of all the Protestant and Catholic groups of the city. So I was actually able to go to all of the Christian churches and experience them. And so for the most part, as I shared, my upbringing I felt was really positive. Like what I liked about my religious friends was they were really loving and accepting in a way I didn't experience in other places in school. In fact, I almost wanted to switch over to the Catholic school at one point because I didn't think I could fit in with my school. But then I realized that that I would rather go to public school. It was actually better. But I thought about it for a minute, and yeah. So for the most part, I'm really grateful. It kept me out of trouble too. Not gonna lie. I noticed a lot of my classmates would get into things like, to be quite honest, partying and drugs and things that I had no interest in. And I had something else that I could choose, which was youth group gatherings, just hanging out with church people, as you know, doing musicals, like having fun. And so that was the really good side. If I were to look at, I mean, there were some things that definitely need healing in the Christian church, which I found out later growing on. And for me, it was particularly issues of like just romance, sex, sexuality. I felt was just, now looking back, not very, like, it was very repressed, very suppressed. It was very much like, be afraid of your sexuality. And so I think I can look back and realize that I spent way too much time being scared of being a sexual being, to be quite honest. Like in the Catholic Church, it's so severe that like masturbating is considered like a really major sin.
Wow.
And so you're like supposed to go to confession and talk to priests, and it's kind of a lot of pressure for someone that's experiencing puberty. Hello.
Yeah.
Like that's a really big thing in your body and your life. And I desire like religion to be much more supportive of like a healthy, like to feel good about your sexuality, to feel like you can talk about it in healthy ways. So
like not deny something that's like intrinsically human.
That's clearly not, you're not going to stop that energy. It needs to, you need to show like, be shown a healthy way to express it. So for me, that was the biggest place where I didn't have a safe place in my church space growing up. And later on, I had to really grapple with that. And overall, like, even though I was taught a lot of really good things in Christianity, there was a lot of fear of things outside of Christianity. Like I remember my Catholic, some people in my church, I told them I was getting into yoga. They're like, be careful.
Really?
Oh yeah. Because it was a small town in Michigan, and it's just, there's just a fear of things outside of that Christian context, make sure you still know that Jesus is your savior, and which is fine. Like I get like there's an evolution happening, but I guess that's how I'll break the ice, saying mostly I'll say that I was really grateful to grow up in the church. It gave me a good foundation of and I know all churches are different, but my community in particular was more focused on love. It was more focused on, we want a safe place for our youth to be able to gather and have healthy activities to do, like singing in church and having gatherings. And so in a way, it was my family growing up. and my safe place.
Nice.
So yeah, so I'll just share that, open up the floor if anyone else wants to share their experience growing up with religion.
Hi, I'm Daniel. I really resonate a lot what you said. And I'm Casey Kelly, and I grew up under my mom, who is a pastor. So I'm a pastor kid, PK, and I have a lot of layers going on. But first, I'll just say I resonate a lot what you said about sexual orientation. And because right now I grew up in a United Methodist church, and the United Methodist church, it's like how LGBTQ is, they're not allowing pastors to marry the same-sex couples.
Mm.
And it was incredibly hard. And I've been advocate for same-sex marriage. And of course, in that time frame, I identify as bisexual. And of course, I'm in same-sex union. Well, with the false twin flame, but that was a whole different topic. But another layer came up is how every Sunday I had to put on a dress. It's just that whenever I had to put on the pants, it's like there's a saying around my gender, and I'm divine masculine, and I wasn't very authentic self at the church. So that was, I know it's kind of a little bit hard to, I mean, it's just that when I think about it, all those times, how I had to put on dresses, I mean, it looks good on me, and it's good, but it's not authentic.
Right.
It's not showing from inside to outer expression. And then, of course, yesterday I was trying on clothes. I had to wear middle school boys because I'm short and I'm small. And when I put on the traditionally a button-up shirt from men's section, middle school boys section, I felt so comfortable and so at ease. And I was like, imagine if I could wear that kind of outfit every Sunday to truly feel comfortable with God.
Mm.
I know that we'll talk about religion, so unionist really helps to show me that God is always there with me, always.
Right.
Amen.
Yeah, my God loves your authentic self.
Right. Get to show up with all of you in your faith and be loved for it.
Beautiful.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, Casey. Floor is open again. Who else wants to share?
And if you guys want to leave yourselves unmuted, unless there's a lot of noise, you can, just for organic conversation flow.
Yeah.
Hi. I wanted to share a little of my experience growing up with church and all of that.
It's funny. Church experience is funny.
Yeah. I remember since I was a child, having this rejection to church. It just coming to my mind why. because I remember like I'm from a very little town, so my town is like very like everyone knows everyone, and it's like be careful what you do because everyone will know tomorrow. So relax.
Mhm.
So yeah, I remember the consciousness there was like God only sees you when you are in church. So go to church, behave in a correct way, and when you get out, you can do whatever the fuck you want, and no one sees you. And that was the consciousness in my head, like, and it was like, I don't like that because they were like forcing you to like, yeah, go to church, you need to be a good kid. I remember that they used like a lot of things. For example, like notebooks with stickers, something like that, that the pastor gives you every Sunday, so they can check if you are missing like services. And I remember like, why do they do that? Like they are forcing you. And the same energy, like, yeah, if you don't come, you don't love Jesus, or if you don't really do that, or whatever. All of this like weird energy of like, don't be yourself in the complete expression. Because as Daniel was saying, like doing yoga, I say, oh my God, you're doing something weird. All consciousness. I remember like this happened recently, like some years ago, and one of the people that teach like the church school, it's like some classes, was like, hey, are you doing the confirmation? I was like, no, I don't really want to do it. I need another thing. Careful talking about God in that way, because it's going to punish you if you talk bad about him. It's like, I'm not talking bad about him. Like, I'm just exploring and being free. It's like not being afraid, because it's this concept of being afraid of God. And that is the reason that they were like, well, in church, behave so correctly. This guilt of like, yeah. So I have a lot of experiences like that in that school and in everything, because yeah, the person teaching it wasn't aligned with what they were teaching. I was like, it doesn't make sense for me. They were trying to force me something that they weren't embodying it, and I was doing it in another way, not in the church way, but it was like, being a good person, doing the thing, and yeah, basically my experience was like a lot of like controlling, and you need to do that, or be careful with that, and don't explore that idea.
I'm really judgy.
Very judging
Yeah.
everything, like yeah.
It's the same for me. Like I also grew up Catholic, right?
Yeah.
I grew up in the Catholic Church. Well, sort of like my dad's side of the family was Catholic, and my mom was more like New Age spiritual. She even tried Buddhism for a while. So we used to go to like a Buddhist temple, which was a cool experience for me. And like I learned meditation at like 8 years old, which is actually that like impacted me pretty in a good way. And like we tried out vegetarianism, and that was like I actually enjoyed that. But then on the other side, like the contrast was my dad's side, and they were very Catholic, like the terrible Catholic. like they hated my stepmom because she moved in with my dad before they were married, so they like shunned the family. Like this whole like that really the same type of energy, like judgy Catholic families, and yeah, like so it was like I had two sides of the coin with religion. With like my mom's side was really like open-minded and very like spiritual and very loving and open, and then my dad's side was like extremely not open and really kind of angry. And so those were the two experiences I had with religion. But because I had those two experiences, I knew that like there was a good side to religion. Like there was like something really beautiful, and there was something really similar about the two things. Like if you read the Bible and like you study Buddhism, and so I just became really interested in all the religions, and so I just kind of researched them all throughout growing up, and it all like in the end led me to unionism because it does kind of just like unite all of the religions.
Right.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I can relate a lot to that.
Sure.
No, yes, sure. Yeah. But yeah, I like it was very fruitful. I'm so glad that I didn't get to explore what I wasn't led to explore other religions at such an early age, but I'm so glad that I did at some point. Like that was more college for me. But actually, I forgot. In sixth grade, my dad gave me, I talked a little bit about this, a book that he thought was a Catholic book. This is a funny story. It turned out it was not quite. It was someone that started off Catholic conversation with God and kind of went into New Age spirituality. And so I did have a period where like I read that book in sixth grade. I was like, oh, God just loves me for me and I get to be myself. And I for a while I spouted to everyone that you're free and you can just be yourself. And I kind of freaked people out. And my mom was very concerned and told me that I should stop reading this book. And because I love my mom, I said, okay. I actually told her I would burn that book. Luckily, I only hid it in my box of children's books for me to discover years later. But yeah, I think that like ability to freely search, I think we're kind of moving there.
Right.
Like it, you know, I can relate to like I wasn't kind of given that freedom to until like later, but it's so fruitful to explore.
It sounds like. Oh, go ahead.
You go.
Okay. I was gonna say it sounds like there's kind of like a theme here, or a few themes here. Like one is experiencing a lot of control in certain areas, but also like, especially Michaela, what you're highlighting is like you connected to something beautiful beyond what you were seeing necessarily.
Yeah.
That's really important.
Yeah, it was really nice. Like, it was such a good experience. It's like we went to church. I think the temple for Buddhism was on Thursdays, so it was like a nice change from Sundays. And also, it was just so nice. Like, they always had tea and meditation pillows, and it was like so pleasant. And they would have little like vegetarian barbecues there, and it was just like a really nice experience where like all of the people were so loving and accepting, and it was, yeah, I don't know why we stopped doing that, but yeah, it was just really, really beautiful. It was like unionism is like the best religious experience you can get. Like, it's the religion that like I always followed in my heart. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Amen.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah.
The big thing is like having an open mind. Because to know that, you have to have an open mind. If you don't, like, you are closing all the doors, like, to experience. You know, God is only this way, or God only can, manifest in this way, or I can get to know God in this way, and you close all of the other doors. So you don't have the complete experience, and that is the thing that I was experiencing. Is use this way. I was like, that is like, I don't know. There is ton more of ways that are more attractive and more interesting to explore, and having freedom to explore all of the options,
And more modern.
Yeah, more modern like ways. Like, okay, how I want this in my life. This is good. Why is bad? Let's do this. Yeah.
Kaylee Mayer says, "Yay, I love seeing Soul Family together."
Aww, that's true.
That's sweet.
Yeah, your purpose unites your soul family.
That's true, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's so true. I think we'll just mute because there's like some construction. So
Okay. Yeah, does anyone else want to share? Maybe Lou, Renato, or Sage about some childhood experiences you had, religion or the church, or even just spirituality that really impacted you?
My experience with religion is very similar with most of you, because I think I came from control to freedom. I grew up like in Christianity. Half of my family is Catholic and the other half is Protestant. So part of my childhood was very controlling. My parents wanted me to go to the church every day, literally every day, to do something in the church.
Wow.
Yeah, like Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, like the day, they say the praise day, the day of the pray, the day of the glory, the day of like a discussion group, which was good. For me, it was good, but it was so, like, I felt myself very pressured because I felt like I needed to be there to save my soul. But at the same time, I didn't like that pressure, that control. And then I was not happy at all. So I started to go to the Catholic Church again. And I felt just a little bit of peace, because in Brazil, I know it's probably is quite different, but in Brazil, I felt more comfortable with my sexuality in the Catholic Church than the Protestant Church. I don't know why. I think Catholic Church in Brazil, you just go to the church and people don't know you. I don't like, you just go to the service on a Sunday, and if you don't want to go, that's okay. But the Protestant church, in my experience, was very controlling. And I remember when I was 16, I went to the Catholic Church to confess my sins to the priest. And I told him about my sexuality, and I was crying. And he said to me, everything you are telling me, I could say you are committing sin, but I don't see sin in you, because you didn't choose this and you just want to love. So I don't see any sin on you. And I was like, oh my God. So I felt like God loves me, but I don't know if people in the church would judge me as well. So after that, I started to like asking myself, does hell exist? Does heaven exist? You know, this type of thing. So I started to research about Buddhism. I started to research about spiritualism and all other religions after when I was 16 or 17. And then I felt like very free. I started, okay, and I just want to know myself. I just to know about God, because I see God as a bad guy in the heaven who judge people. So, and I started to develop my spirituality in other ways, my own way. And then I started to go to a spiritual church, spiritual place, and it was amazing. But they still had some type of control, but less. But I was like, it's not this. I missed something. And then when I started my twin flame journey, God led me to unionism here. And I'm so glad I'm here with you guys, because unionism is literally, you have the freedom to be yourself. You have the freedom to express yourself. You have the freedom to be exactly who you are. So, and we are here just to love. Love is my religion, and unionism is pure love. That's my experience with religions in my life.
Oh, so beautiful. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that's interesting, Renato. I relate to that a lot in my upbringing too. Well, the number one thing I was told about God and religion when I was growing up too was that you have to you have to believe in God, or else you're gonna go to hell. And I would, and when I was young, I really loved God very openly. I wrote about God. I performed a poem in school about God. And I did love God openly. But when it was made clear to me that you have to believe in God and you have to do these certain things, or else you're going to hell, that's when I really started to turn away. Because, for me, the possibility that I could be face eternal damnation, just because I refused to follow some controlling bullshit, I was like, well, I don't want to have anything to do with that. And so it was a painful experience, to be honest, to have to say no to God. Like in a way I was saying, well, I don't believe in God, or at least I don't believe in God that way. And, you know, I don't believe in heaven and I don't believe in hell. And I just believe there's this world, you know. And, you know, that was on my mom's side, that there was the Christian background and stuff. And, excuse me, and she would tell me about this in her upbringing and the group that she was in, the fundamentalist group, that was they were very controlling too. And they had like very rigid beliefs about what men and women should be, like kind of control based, you know. And she would talk about that. And I was just like, fuck, no, I don't like this. So I would gravitate away from it. And, but I kind of retained that faith in God, because I never called myself an atheist. I only called myself an agnostic. And I always felt God in my heart, and I knew there was something, you know, there was some sort of love and force of the universe or creator, you know. I was like, I know there's something. I know that this is real, but it's just, I can't dive into it as it's been presented to me. So that was my experience. And I guess with my dad, he was an atheist when I was growing up. And for him, I don't know, it was just more about like philosophy and living in a moral way. And he liked to talk to me about philosophy and how to live a good life, you know, in a philosophical way. And I appreciated that, and I connected with him there. But I think for both of my parents too, the religion was more just like, you know, being a good person, achieving in society, being respectable in society, you know, being ambitious, achieving accomplishments, you know, like that's a religion, you know, because it's what you choose to like base your life on. It's your life's compass. So that was actually my main experience of religion, because my mom had a lot of trauma around religion. And I think because of that, she never pushed us to go to church. So I never went to church. I basically didn't have much religion in my upbringing. So it was interesting, because she did love God and always tell me to believe in God or else I would go to hell, but never had us go to church. And so I was like, well, and that kind of helped me be more free in my belief too, because I was like, well, you know, she can do what she wants and I can do what I want. So cool, you know, but that's my experience. So, and I've just really been healing the belief that God is judgmental and punishing and, you know, like all of that. I think we all are, and just healing, being accepted for my true self too, you know. So yeah, as a trans woman, and but there is no religion I found that's better to be a trans woman than, or LGBTQ or whatever, than unionism, the Church of Union, you know. Not only is it accepting, but it teaches you how to heal yourself so that you can escape the inner pain that you may have if you're transitioning. You know, that's a huge deal. So I'm really grateful for that. Anyway, that's my background. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing all of that.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're going to kind of relate to like healing a lot of like fear that has been in religion. That's what's refreshing about unionism. Is like it truly, in no place do we espouse that fear is necessary. But I can relate to that too. Really fearing, like if I take the wrong step, I'm going to be out of alignment with God, and who knows what could happen, right? Like
teaching you that God isn't within you, and you have to like base all of your decisions and actions on like something outside of you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm. Wow. That was deep.
Yeah.
Actually, when you were talking, because I was thinking like I don't really have that many experiences growing up, because I wasn't raised under any religion, and the only time I really went to churches was like during occasions that called for it, like, you know, like a wedding or a funeral. But actually, when you were talking, I had like a memory come up where my aunt, who is just incredibly devoted to religion, she actually like got her master's in, is it theology?
Theology.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. She got her master's in theology. I believe, I don't know if it's, I don't remember exactly what religion she was like devoted to, but she was constantly like inviting me to attend. And there was one time my mom and I were like, okay, yeah, we'll go and see what your church is like, what it's all about. And we visited, and there was like, I think it was supposed to be like the word reform is coming to my mind, like,
Oh yeah, Reformed Christian or something.
or something like that. It was just it appeared to be kind of like relaxed and inviting of all faiths. And there was like really cool live music and everything, and I was like, wow, this is interesting, this will be cool. But then as soon as um the main guy started talking about what the message of the day was, like I just felt sick to my stomach, because he was talking about some like a young man in the church, in their church, who he was like not naming them by name, but it was clear he was probably in the room. And he was talking about how that teenage boy had come to him and expressed the feelings that he was like gay, and how they were like deeply concerned, and how they were gonna like start working on him essentially. And they used like, this man was like using this teenage boy's very personal experience to like talk about how wrong being gay was. And as I was sitting there, I just remember feeling like so sick to my stomach. And eventually like I walked out of the room, and I like stood in the outside area until the service was over. And like, yeah, it's interesting, like I didn't remember that until you started talking, Sage. For some reason it like popped up. But like I remember that being an experience that made me kind of go, I really don't think religion is for me at all. So that was one experience I did have.
Wow, that's a powerful enough experience to, yeah, I want to go back.
Yeah.
I think that's something that is amazing about unionism, is the only religion that really gave me clarity on like what it means to like sexuality and what it means to express it. And it's not based on fear. It's just
It's not, or yeah.
explore this. This is God's design for it. It's meant to make you feel really good. We're not condemning you for exploring other things. We're just saying this is going to really work for you. This is really a great design that's available.
Well, it's based on like truth and results.
Yes.
And so it's not based on like rhetoric or like passing opinion, or
Right, you don't need to use fear to uphold it. Like I grew up seeing my mom devastated because she divorced my dad, and the church kind of shamed her for it. Like the church shames you for that experience. You have to go through an atonement. And
really?
Oh yeah.
Oh wow.
Oh yeah.
You have to go through an atonement process if you get divorced?
Right, where you essentially nullify. It's called an annulment, and you have to basically prove that the love was never there, so that it never happened. Because in the Catholic Church, if you marry, it's supposed to be for life. So the only way you can say that you're not married anymore is to prove that you never loved each other. Whoa. And that it was never real.
That's crazy.
And so they dig. So like you're in the throes. This is something that's pretty sensitive because I experienced it. You're in the throes of dealing with this devastating life change, and then you have a priest who is digging into your life, being like, "Well, where did you guys go wrong? Because clearly you didn't do this right." And like. So instead of helping somebody in their time of pain, seeing my parents go through that was not easy. To be like, why aren't you being loved through this experience, right? So, yeah, lots of healing to be done there in religion.
I was just thinking about how, Daniel, when you would talk about like annual, the divorce and like a divorce doesn't exist. It's like there's some truth to it. It's like with one is with a soulmate, but if they're with the twin flames, they're never separated.
Well, that's the missing piece, right? Is
exactly.
They didn't have the knowledge of twin flames. They didn't have vision.
Right. Yeah.
It's like they're on the right track. It's like almost like every religion is on the right track. It's just it somehow get miss, it's like a hit and miss kind of thing. Like, for example, I resonate with Christianity, but I told my mom I'm not 100% there because there's some in Christianity that I'm questioning. And I feel like because I feel resonate with reincarnation, and there's not anything in the Christianity that talks about reincarnation. And so I did one point go to Buddhism because I love how meditate and really truly connect and go within it and truly sit there within it and reincarnation. That really resonates. And that is a perfect example of how every religion has some truth to it. It doesn't mean they're all bad, wrong, to the point it traumatized some people. Yes, it can, but still, these religions are valid and to the extent.
Yeah, that actually resonates with what unionism teaches. You can be a Christian unionist, a Buddhist unionist.
And what it is when you're taking on unionism, you're acknowledging those missing pieces or that those things that don't quite add up, and you're open to like receiving the whole truth there while still maintaining that foundation of whatever brought you, like whatever resonates with your being.
Yeah, you're able to take that, like what we've all shared. There were some things that worked, right? Some things that felt good. And so we don't have to like throw the baby out with the bathwater. Was one of my lessons.
Right.
You can appreciate those things. Finding the rest.
Yeah, I liked Buddhism a lot too. As a teenager, I was introduced to Buddhism more so because of like world geography, and I loved it. Also, like Casey, because of reincarnation. Because when I turned away from God, and so I kind of turned away from the idea of eternal life, but I also had this crisis within me where I was like, but does that mean that I will stop existing? If there is no God, there's no heaven, there's no afterlife. So I just stop existing, and my consciousness just shuts off black. Like, what does that mean? And I would contemplate that. And like, just after years of like contemplating that, I was just like, you know what? That can't be true. And so that's when Buddhism, I was made to know about Buddhism, and I was like, thank God. So this is the truth, and I can be an eternal being without having to face the judgment of like eternal hell, potentially. So that was really relieving for me. And I liked Buddhism kind of because of that, or at least Buddhism, how it was presented to me, in like a mostly white American suburb, right? And, they had other ideas about it too. Like Buddhism was presented as like being about living a very simple life materially and just detaching from material desires, focusing on like service or having good karma and not harming people and things like that. And so for me, that was very, I think that shaped me in my life too, because I was feeling like it was almost conveying, or the version that I got, I'm not saying it's the version of Buddhism, was almost saying like, well, it's better to be poor because the world and the money has evil and it's corrupting, right? And so I think that was an influence too. And when I was going to become a school teacher, I told my a professor I was close to in college I was going to become a school teacher, for example, and he was like, "Oh, so you're choosing the vow of poverty, like you're taking a monastic vow and life of poverty." And I'm like, "Yep, it's really noble." And,
yeah, that's what ingrained a lot of us.
Yeah. So, and I didn't really have that growing up. Like, I didn't get those messages, but I got it from like the what I received that was supposedly Buddhism, and I bet some Buddhists believe that too. But it was just interesting. So since then, we've been undoing those vows of poverty and realizing that everything is divine and of God. And we're not just divine beings dropped in some like trash can of the planet. It's all divine.
No.
You got to crawl out. the trash can. I'm like, no. So, and unionism really provides that too, because it's nice to see everything, more than nice, but it's so healing to see everything as being divine, So, yeah. So,
Thank you. I'm curious if Lou has anything to share. I know Lou has maybe a different experience with religion growing up.
Yeah, I grew Muslim to Muslim parents and a Muslim community. So when I was a child, I was not having that much like open to any type of religion except Islam. And the most person who was affecting me with religion and who planted the seeds about the existence of God and all other stuff about God was my mom. And she wasn't that much a strict person, but she actually only just represent God and the way how she being taught by her family. And it was very strict. It was very based on fear. Like you either do this or you're gonna go to hell. It's like fear-based living. I lived it. It was fine. It was okay. But there's something was off all the time. Like why I have always to be fearful and I'm gonna get heaven. Why I have to live to hell so I can have heaven? Why I have to be in like very fearful to live in heaven? Why I have always to have this reward? Why I have to wait? Like we have this idea, life like we are living now. It's very temporary. It's hell for us. This is what I've been told. So you're gonna be rewarded after life to go to heaven. And I was like, why I have to live like that here? And in the end, I have to be rewarded by heaven. Why I don't live heaven here and now? Why I don't feel it now? Why I don't feel like at peace now? Then when I grew up, I started be open to other religion, but the most because Islam there is a lot of sects there, and Islam the more sect that I was being open to is Sufism. So I was reading a lot about Sufis and a lot of gurus and Sufis, and I was like, oh, I like that, but I never committed to it. But I like the way how it was very, very open, and it was very spiritual. It wasn't very strict as the way I was being raised. I moved on in my life, and I had so many stuff growing up. Till like 6 years ago, I was very angry at God, and I thought there's no God there. And it was very hard for me to believe that there is no God. But actually the truth, I was only angry about God, like because he put me in this world, because I go back to the childhood, like I believe that God put me in this world to live in misery, to live in suffering, so I can be rewarded in heaven in the end. So there's a lot of conflict when I was growing up, but now with the teaching of Jeff and Shaleia and Church of Union teachings, everything makes sense. Nothing, everything that I was thinking about, everything I was contemplating when I was a child, I was like, why this? All the answer has been answered basically in the Church of Union. Everything started being very clear. Like, yeah, I can live heaven here. Like, I don't have to wait after I die, like I go to heaven. Like, I don't have to wait. I have this period of wait so I can go to heaven. Now I can live in heaven here and now and be at peace. And I know that God loves me, and God will never punish me. I don't have to live in a fear-based life anymore. So this was very, very, very big thing to me, that not to live in a very big fear-based life. It was only loving. It was very easy. So thanks to Jeff and Shaleia, of course, because they helped me to see my religion that I grew in a very, very clearly. See the truth of my religion instead of just like throw it in the garbage and like God is not here, my religion is not here. But actually, I'm so grateful for that, and thank you so much, Jeff and Shaleia.
Wow,
Beautiful.
that was really well put. Like that feeling of everything making sense, right? Like
And trusting yourself.
Mm-hmm. And being able to actually look back and see, oh, those things that made sense, like I can still appreciate, what did make sense, but can let go of the rest, right? Mm-hmm. There's a logical way that God is that just feels right, feels good.
I found it interesting how you're talking about how there's like a promise of when you die, that's when you'll get all your good.
Gosh, I remember that.
That's so backwards and it feels so bad. Yeah. Being able to identify that is, really powerful and important. Yeah, the promise of the afterlife, the promise of heaven,
and the idea that this life is meant to be suffering. I almost forgot that was kind of like you kind of come to expect it, right? Because you're almost even paying a debt with it. Like you suffer, and it's like that's your debt to heaven. Like whoa,
right?
Yeah, that is kind of how it was working. It's like, well, I mean, as a Christian, we were understood that like Jesus suffered for us and we suffer for, so there's almost a glorification of suffering. Mm-hmm. That is, definitely not here.
No.
In unionism, it's the opposite.
No, the opposite. Yeah.
It almost kind of blew my mind. Like, I never have to put up with that? What? Like, I can...
You were actually shocked when you joined the community and you kept seeing only love is real, love never fails. Like,
that's
that
true.
was shocking.
I thought that was scandalous to share. When I first started sharing like memes and stuff, I was like, I can't believe I'm putting, I was like, this, I understood it logically that God is all that exists and God is love. So it's like, this logically makes sense when I say only love is real and love never fails. But it's so radical because so much of my life has insisted, oh, that's crazy. Don't you see all the fear around you? Fear is real. And so I can see why that just a simple statement like that is powerful because it says to the illusion, what it is. Mm-hmm. Only love is real.
I like how when Lou was speaking, it reminded me of like that feeling growing up where you're like going through the religious experiences and going to church, but there's like a logical part of your mind that's just like, this doesn't make sense. Like, I cannot agree with this. I remember that feeling, just like feeling into spirituality, and I knew God was real, and I remember just feeling like really like resonant with that. But then like going to church and the whole vibe of it just felt like opposite of what like I felt in my heart to be God. And so like I actually kind of like resented Catholicism, especially for a really long time. But just like the other day, we went into a Catholic church like in the city center of Valencia, and it was a beautiful church. Like it was like it just reminded me of unionism, like being able to build a church one day. And it was so beautiful. It was like gold and carvings and like paintings everywhere. And I didn't understand the service, but apparently they were talking about like the second coming of Christ, which was really cool. And we were in there, and I couldn't understand the words, but we were just standing. And my first like instinct was to like be like, Catholic, like church, gross, But I like pushed through that, or not pushed through it, but I just surrendered, and I just like chose to see like the truth of this church is that like these people love God and they don't understand how to love God, and they're kind of confused. And then I just felt so much peace. Like I just felt all of the love that everyone had for God. And it was a really beautiful experience. And then you told me they were talking about the second coming, and I was like, that's cool. Yeah, it was just really beautiful. It just reminded me like, the truth of religion is that people love God. They're just confused about how to do that. So, yeah.
Amen.
Amen. Mic drop.
Yeah.
It's like these colors in the church, like red and gold and red. And just like one day when unionism and we can have a church, like that will be so incredible. There's something like really beautiful about a church. Yeah.
And Jeff took us deeper in that recently in a post about how like what you really want to have at the foundation of a church is that pure inner altar. I think is how he expressed it. Like a lot of churches focused on the exterior beauty.
Are you talking about the post Lisi made?
Oh, was that Lisi? Oh.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too.
Yeah. Okay, so Lisi.
She shared in A Course in Miracles.
A Course in Miracles.
Passage.
Thank you. Getting the right quotation here. But that was really profound. I feel that unionism, the desire is to have that core healing of purity so that the outer building expresses, you know, the pure heart.
It'll definitely be like, yeah, the physical manifestation of that is going to be a huge victory for all of us.
Yeah, I loved your comment. Yeah, when you said like once we fully like embodied unionism within is when we'll have like the monument. I just thought that was cool.
Yeah, I feel it. I feel how we're all claiming it so much.
Yeah.
In these discussions, like, yeah, it's, I can feel it.
Yeah. Wonderful. Let's just do it. Oh yeah.
Oh
wow.
my gosh, it's already noon.
That's why the silence has. I believe we've come to time. So.
Yes. So. Someone said thank you. Well said, everyone. But yeah, seems like
I think that
the
wraps
time
it
is up.
Yeah.
So thank you everyone for joining us, both live and in the comments. And we hope to see you next week at the next Soul Cafe discussion.
Yeah.